Hi everyone, well welcome to Albert Park where I'm joined by senior writer Simon Wilson. Simon, close but no cigar for weed this far. We're going to talk or hear from Chlöe Swarbrick in a second, right? She'll be gutted.
I think she will be, although she won't be completely gutted because there are still about 500,000 specials to come, and the suggestion is that if the specials do well, then the yes vote will actually get over the line. Realistically,
70% though they need, don't they?
They will need 70%, a little under 70% to swing the vote from the 7% gap at the moment to swing it to a yes vote. If you look at who is going to be voting in the specials or who did vote in the specials, overseas voters, younger voters, people who just enrolled.
I said before, maybe the ones that have been to Amsterdam on their OE in London.
You've got to figure there's a big skew there towards a yes vote. I think that's likely. So 2 to 1 is what they need, a little over 2 to 1, and that could happen.
Win time. I can sing a song if you like. Are we good? Sweet as. Good to go? Cool, that's the bells. All right. Well, kia ora koutou. Welcome to the beautiful electorate of Auckland Central. Today we have just received the indicative initial results for the cannabis legalisation and control referendum. And on those indicative results, it looks like the referendum has lost. However, we still have around 500,000 votes to come through for those specials, which are due at the end of next week. The kind of indications that I have heard from those who have been doing the calculations, crunching those numbers, is that we need around 67% of those specials to be skewed towards yes in order to put this at the post and to ultimately have that yes vote for the cannabis legalisation and control referendum. I just want to use this time before we go to questions to say thank you very much to all of those who have come forward, who have shared their stories, particularly of the criminal justice system, to those who have spoken about their experiences of being green fairies and being criminalised for providing medicine, the only medicine that works for some. For those who have spoken about being family members of those who have suffered with mental ill health and addiction issues and have been worried about having their family members come forward for risk of going away in handcuffs. I'm also really proud of the campaign that all of us ran. It was evidence-based, it was compassionate, it always spoke to the facts. And as far as that can be said, I'm also really stoked to be following in the footsteps of Green MPs who have always stood really staunchly in favour of evidence-based, compassionate harm reduction, legalisation of cannabis. The same cannot always be said for those across the parliamentary aisle. So, look forward to taking all your questions.
Why aren't you accepting the no vote?
Because we still have 500,000 votes to come through.
And I guess that 67%, do you think that's realistic?
I think it's entirely plausible. I think that if anybody had tried to predict anything about this election, least of all that I would be sitting here as the leading candidate in Auckland Central, especially based on the polls, we would be having a very different conversation.
I guess are you disappointed with the numbers as they stand now?
Look, I gave this my all. The Greens gave it our all, and advocates, activists and experts stuck their neck out around the country and gave this their all. We also were up against a tide of misinformation and some pretty poor form campaigning from others. So I am really stoked, really proud and really privileged to have been a part of the campaign that ran on the side of yes.
If it doesn't go through, would you be pushing for criminalisation?
I think, again, the reason that legalisation was the issue on the table is that decriminalisation simply removes criminal penalties from people who use a substance. It doesn't deal with the issue of supply. It therefore doesn't deal with the issue of people graduating to using harsher substances. So what we were talking about here always was getting control of that supply chain and taking it out of the black market, putting the issue into the light so we can deal with it like adults. We will continue pushing for mature, responsible and respectful drug kind of law reform, because what has become incredibly abundantly clear is that the Misuse of Drugs Act 1975 is simply not fit for purpose. And actually on that I would say that 2 reports commissioned by Labour Party ministers in the last term of government showcased exactly that. Those are the Safe and Effective Justice Review, Tureki by Minister Andrew Little, and Dr David Clark in his former position as Minister of Health on the Mental Health and Addiction Inquiry, or Hiara Oranga.
Could be a razor thin margin. Do you think the Prime Minister saying how she voted earlier may have tipped it over to yes?
I'm in the Greens because I have the courage of my convictions.
So is that a cop-out essentially from the Prime
again, I think that I'm really proud of the campaign that we ran. I'm really proud of having stuck my neck out there and made the argument for something that I believe in, something that is evidence-based, something that disproportionately criminalises and hurts our most marginalised communities. And I think that any politician who wants to talk about those kinds of things needs to say those things when it matters.
You used the phrase across the aisle before. Would you like to be part of the government with a role in health?
Folks, give us 48 hours. Cool.
What's next?
What's next? There's still so much work to do in terms of actually realising justice. You know, we have the so-called criminal justice system that penalises people disproportionately in marginalised communities, not just for cannabis, but for a range of different issues. And again, to refer to those two issues, or rather those two reports that I alluded to before, there is a roadmap for how we can actually tackle those issues and walk down the path of drug harm reduction, which I'd also note our Prime Minister raised at the UN in 2018, I believe, when she spoke about how the government had a commitment to drug harm reduction instead of the criminal justice approach.
If you look at the trend in polling, it's going towards cannabis. So is there something that you'd bring up perhaps next time around if there was a coalition?
I can't preempt what's going to happen in the next 48 hours.
It makes sense, given the trend.
You're more than welcome to provide that commentary.
What with the closeness of it, what does that show, I guess?
I mean, I can tell you what, I had always estimated that this was going to be a razor-thin margin. I'd always said that this was going to come down to turnout. And actually just this morning on social media, I was alluding to the 1913 alcohol prohibition referendum, which lost initially before those special votes came through. Initially winning, or rather when the special votes came through, finally winning the campaign for continuance, as it was called then, which is continued legalisation of alcohol. So there's every chance that this does flip when it comes to the specials, but again, it will be that razor-thin margin.
Soldiers' votes.
I'm looking for the votes of those who have weighed up the evidence. You know, in the words of our former Prime Minister Helen Clark, cannabis legalisation is a relatively counterintuitive notion in that if you don't like cannabis, voting no doesn't get rid of it. You know, whether you're 15 or 50, if you want to get hold of cannabis today, as you did yesterday, you can go do it. You're getting it from a tinny house that might upsell you to synthetics, which we know are once again emerging and really hurting people on our streets in this country. So there's a whole lot more work to do.
Do you think if the Prime Minister stuck her neck out and said that she did vote yes, could it sway them?
I'm in the Greens because I have the courage of my convictions. Cool. All right. Thank you very much.